What improved your quality of life so much you wish you did it sooner? 53-year-old woman here, a hottie in my youth. The relief and freedom with not feeling like my worth is dependent on my looks is palpable. I stopped dyeing my hair during quarantine and now I have this wild silver streak in the front that I love. I think I'm going to grow it out long again and fully rock the witch vibe. Why? Because I'm old enough to no longer give a crap about other people's judgment. Also, a lot of more substantial lessons about life and living and death. Make peace with death. Be present. Become the person you would like to be with. Be nice to your partner. Sleeping bear with your partner solves problems. Don't mess with systems that can end you or destroy your house. No one is looking at you, so stop tripping. Meditation works. ECT works for depression at last resort. Get your dog used to being touched. Screw age. Do what you want. Find a happy couple to role model. Truth is easier. Dogs train people. This will be a little death skewed because I've been dealing with a lot of it, but the first lesson is everyone passes away. It won't seem real until it happens. And maybe not until it's a parent, peer, or God forbid, sibling or child. When it's someone old and ill, it's sad but not tragic. Younger, it's tragic. Self-destruction, almost always tragic with a few caveats. Another lesson. I don't really feel like an adult until 2 years ago when my father passed away. I don't have kids, so maybe people feel like adults after that milestone, but losing a parent is something. Worse when you're young, I'm sure, but still a punch in the gut when you're older. Okay, so the lesson from the death stuff is this. Death is why it's important to learn how to be present in the moment you're currently living. I think the moments when you're spaced out are kind of lost forever, in a way. Unless you're at work, then think about whatever you want. Daydream on company time, fight the power. My father and I were very close, but both are ADHD as hell, him untreated. And the last day where he was still able to be up and around on his own, we sat outside together and talked. Some of it was important, some not. But the most important part was that we were both 100% there. I very rarely felt that level of presence or of seeing and being seen with someone. Death is inevitable, but it is also a gift. The only scary part is not knowing for sure what comes next, if anything, but we're not supposed to know. If we knew, we'd focus on that. We're supposed to be focused on this. One thing for sure is that death is the end of pain. My stepmom passed away recently, not too long after my father, and she looked almost joyous after she passed, like she'd seen something wonderful. I visited a passing friend years ago, a woman in her 70s, and she looked radiantly beautiful, practically glowing. She passed a few hours later and was smiling when she went. Anyway, that's my most recent big life lesson. Death isn't something to fear, but I think it is there as a backdrop to remind us that things here are finite. Lessons regarding love. I got really brutally honest with myself 20 years ago and said, okay, would you choose you for a life partner? And realized that no, I wouldn't. I was a mess emotionally, financially, and in my environment. We tend to attract people who are kind of where we are in life. Or we should, anyway. Otherwise, one of the two people is a fixer and the other is the broken thing needed to be fixed, and that's not a great dynamic to start with because what happens once you're fixed? Your partner or you is still a fixer. So there is built-in incentive to stay broken. It's best to meet someone where they are, as you are, in a state where if they were never to change a bit, you'd be cool with that. Ideally, you grow in the same direction. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes it doesn't. Anyway, I wanted someone who had their stuff together, so I got my own stuff together. Falling asleep so quickly. Be as gracious and polite to your partner as you are to strangers. Sleeping there together is really helpful to stay connected, even if you're not having a lot of intimacy for whatever reason. It's almost like your skin is having its own conversation with your partners, and it can actually fix problems without having to discuss them. When you buy a house, you can try to fix everything yourself, but hire someone to do your electrical and plumbing. Leave load-bearing walls alone. If you have social anxiety, know this for a fact. Everyone is either insecure to a degree, narcissistic to a degree, or both, which means they're thinking about themselves, not you. No one is going to remember that your fly was down or you have kale in your teeth or whatever, unless you make a big deal of it. If you can't feel calm, practice looking calm. And you know that you can get beta blockers if your psychological symptoms are really bad. Meditation really does help a lot. It helped me with rage, despair, depression, and anxiety. Electroconvulsive therapy, ECT, aka shock treatment, can fix treatment-resistant depression. The side effects can be horrible, but they're better than Nowadays, they have transcranial magnetic treatment that works well and is less extreme. When you adopt a dog, touch him or her everywhere, all the time. Play with their toes, their ears, make them comfortable with you touching their genital area, booty, teeth, gums, etc. Reason: if they get hurt, you or the vet will need to palpate them to check for injury, and you don't want them to have to be muzzled because they're not used to being touched. Also helps with nail trims and getting cockle burrs out from between their toe pads. Don't worry about being too older to start something because you'll be X years old when you finish. You'll be that age anyway. If your parents had a crappy relationship, find a relationship that you respect somewhere else and observe how they treat each other. My mom and stepdad are incredibly rude and insulting to one another, so I found friends whose relationship I wanted to emulate, and I watched them to a probably creepy extent. I'm now in the happiest relationship of anyone I know. It's easier to tell the truth. Lying diminishes everyone involved. Some exceptions apply. Most dog training principles apply to people. This all sounds like fantastic advice. Thank you. But I'm still not going to touch my dog's Slim Jim. Story 2. This is a change I made only a few months ago, but it's been major. I struggle with clinical depression and extreme executive dysfunction, two conditions that exacerbate each other and have taken a lot of time out of my life the past 20 years. I've been doing better, but still experiencing long periods of time when I'm barely functioning, and it's a miracle if I can even make it out of the house, let alone do anything productive. My therapist is a big advocate of being kind to oneself, and in theory, that's the mentality we all should have. There's no reason to punish ourselves when we're already struggling, but for me, the idea that I should be kind to myself is far too easy to corrupt. As in, I'm not going to clean my kitchen because I'm tired, and the kind thing is to let myself sleep for 15 hours or watch Netflix. It's really not kind to let myself do that, and it only makes me feel much worse, both physically and mentally, but it's way too easy to fall into that trap and make it a habit. But on the same token, constantly valuing productivity over rest is the other nasty end of that spectrum. I burn myself out being overly productive, and then have no time for creative pursuits or fun things or resting, and then I inevitably crash and end up right back in the pit of depression where I started it. It's simply not sustainable. Finally, my therapist came up with a narrower concept to follow. Is what you're doing right now the restorative thing? Somehow this was the key for me. Every day I ask myself if I'm doing something restorative, and if I'm not, I go do something that is. Most of the time it's something productive or creative, and when it's not, I'm doing something fun or restful. There are times when lying in bed watching Netflix is the restorative thing, but usually I find the answer is somewhere else, and I'm much happier and more functional for it. Story 3. Leaving my sociopath of a wife. Within 1 year, I had a great job and bought a home for the first time in over 20 years. No more renting. Within 3 years, I had bought my first new car in over 20 years, was able to save money. Met a great woman who respects me and got an even better job making way more than I ever had. Cut toxic people out of my life, point the blame squarely where it belongs, with yourself for allowing people to do this to you, and move on to finally helping yourself. I'm getting married to a wonderful woman who has her own money, job, and assets. She doesn't need me for anything. She wants to be with me. Still don't know why. Well, she had caused me to sink into deep depression where I couldn't imagine life any other way. When I finally pulled myself out of it and opened my eyes, the path was clear and the decision easy, but I never dreamed I could do it so quickly. She had me thinking I was worthless. Apparently, I'm quite the opposite. I now have self-respect. If people make you feel bad about yourself, remember this. Don't take criticism from people you wouldn't go to for advice. But the best advice would be hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel for more outrageous content. Story 4. Reading the book Attached and learning about attachment styles and effective communication, I was gaslit and invalidated my entire existence, so I've been unable to assert my needs and boundaries in relationships. I met a girl a few months ago who's also got attachment issues. I'm more anxious-leaning and she's more avoidant, so she and I are reading that book and creating safe spaces and learning to express ourselves and move towards secure attachment styles. I now know to just say, it makes me feel blank when blank. What would make me feel more secure is blank. Either your partner complies or gives you crap and you dodged a bullet. Also stating early on that I need a good amount of affection, quality time, and sometimes reassurance while I work on myself. Your needs aren't needy, and you aren't clingy. Your needs are your needs, period, and never require explanation. There are people out there who will be glad to meet them. Being alone is better than feeling alone and building resentment, which causes self-sabotaging and destructive behavior. Read the freaking book, even if you think you're fine. Trust me. Story 5. I wouldn't say this is something I recommend, but getting fired from my job. I apprenticed for an emotionally and financially cruel a-hole. I had gone in with the expectation that in exchange for me working 2 years unpaid for him, I'd be able to learn from a master and come out with a high-paying job in his shop and a high-level skill set. It was a risk, and I knew it, but I went for it. It started off okay, but its true colors quickly showed. 10 to 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, no pay, worked a side gig to supplement in the weekend and keep my head above water. Basically worked almost a year without a day off, all the while the master treated me like disposable labor. Talked bad about me behind my back, berated me in front of people, and made me pay for tools that I really couldn't afford. I was eventually thrown under the bus by the foreman for a project that he messed up. I tell you what, I never felt more relief in my life after being fired. I wasn't angry, I wasn't sad. It felt like a giant weight was lifted off of me. However, I did vow revenge against him. I told myself I was going to become more successful than him and let my success be a giant middle finger to him. It's now been almost 4 years, I have my own shop, I have several high-profile clients interested in my work, and I'm all around healthier physically and emotionally. While I did take away new knowledge about my craft, I wish I had told the master to go F himself far earlier and saved myself from a year in hell. Story 6. After my daughter was born, I was single at the time, my entire perspective on dating changed. I always dated men who were verbally cruel, and I accepted it and believed what they were saying. They could say the worst things, and I just agree. When my daughter was born, I decided I would just stay single. Given my track record, I didn't want her to have an example of the kind of love I was used to receiving. But I did make a list of sky's the limit, probably doesn't even exist, detailed qualities a man would need to have to be worthy of being in my daughter's life. I put it away in my journal and never thought of it again, until a few days before my wedding. I was looking through old journals while packing up to move into the home my soon-to-be husband and I purchased. I pulled the list out. Of 76 items total, he met all but 3. I was shocked. It was the very first person I dated after my daughter was born. She had just turned 1 when we met, she was 2 when we got married, and she's 9 years old now. And he has never been anything but wonderful to her, to me, and to the 2 daughters we have since we got married. So yes, I made a specific and ambitious list of something I wanted, and that thing, or person in this case, came to be. I don't know what to attribute it to, but if you don't know where you want to be, you'll never get there. Story 7. Moving away from a mentally, verbally, and occasionally physically cruel mother. I moved out the day that I turned 16, and honestly, it may have saved my life. Not that I legally could have left any sooner, but if I had, maybe I wouldn't have some of the mental issues I do now. Moving helped with my depression as well as my general feeling of wellness. I can leave my house now. I can go out of the yard. I can hang out with my friends if I want to. Where I live, there are 3 other people, and when food is made, I'm not told to come eat after 4 little children have their fill and use the rest as toys. I'm actually eating decently. My blood is no longer orange because of deficiencies. I'm able to use the internet. I can speak my mind. Hell, I can go to the doctor now without needing to have my mother shadow me or tell the doctors that I was lying. I can listen to non-Christian music. I can watch shows that aren't the limit selection of treehouse shows that I was allowed. I have the respect of the people I live with, and they won't barge into my room unannounced. I can actually buy clothes now. I can go into the kitchen and get food. I can leave my room at night to use the bathroom, and there are actual medications like Tylenol or allergy meds here. Again, moving may have saved my life. I'm not saying this is a woe is me sort of thing. I'm just answering the question honestly. I can talk about what happened now pretty easily because it doesn't bother me anymore. It may make me angry at times, but that's it. If anything, this whole message was more of the best thing that has ever happened to me. This isn't something that was intended for pity, it was intended to share the positives. Story 8. Stopped watching the news. Life's way better without it. Stopped working more than 40 hours a week, setting my own boundaries after realizing that when I didn't, people set them for me. You young kids will think this crazy, but I'm glad to have gotten older. All those things that worried me when I was in my 20s just don't matter anymore. Learning to get over myself. Nobody cares what I do, nobody's looking at me. And why should I care if they are? Nobody outside my circle has enough context to make accurate judgments about how I live, so why am I trying so hard to justify my decisions? As soon as I adopted that mindset, being alive got significantly less crappy. I do my best to be a decent person and to take care of myself, and the only opinions I care about are mine, my partner's, and my therapist's. Going to the gym. Used to be a miserable fat but after 3 months of going to the gym, I've lost about a stone and feel so much better. Permanently placed my phone in Do Not Disturb. Allow calls from contacts. This one change saved me from constant disruptive unwanted calls. Life is good and no ring lane. Breathing exercises. Focusing on really deep exhales. After about 10 minutes, my whole outlook for the day changes. Cutting out toxic friends. After years of knowing someone, it can be hard to see that they are no longer the person they were when the relationship started. My childhood best friend grew into a manipulative, selfish prick. For years, I hang out with him almost every day after work and always felt miserable afterwards. Everyone around me questioned why I still spent time with him. I always made excuses that seemed ridiculous in hindsight. I should have cut ties 10 years ago. Buying a good knife for cooking. Independent blankets for my wife and I in bed. Incredible how much better you sleep when there's no waking up with blankets pulled half off or using one that's too heavy or too light. I'd highly recommend for anyone that sleeps with a significant other. Buying a wardrobe of good quality, properly fitting clothing that I actually like. Agonizing over what to wear every morning because this doesn't fit properly. This one has a stain. I just wore that yesterday. I don't like how this sits on my body. It would start my day off very badly. Hiking in mountains. Nothing makes me feel more at peace and excited at the same time. Flossing. I never saw the dentist as a kid, and no one really pushed me to or cared about my dental health. Story 9. Eating healthy. It's amazing after you realize how much you feel like crap after you just took down a double cheeseburger, extra large fries, and a large Coke, but at the time, you don't realize it and just think you're tired. Good eating habits and exercising changed my life. After being diagnosed with diabetes 5 months ago, it was a slap in the face. I also grew up with tons of relatives and a mom who had it, but never learned to rein in the diet. I decided to eat as many greens as humanly possible. Fiber, fiber, fiber. At some point, my migraines left. At some point, my midday sleepiness went away. At some point, my pockmarks and acne spots went away. And then finally, the excess, around 30 pounds that I've been trying to kick melted away. I never realized I was probably eating only 2 cups of veggies a day. It wasn't as hard to eat veggies. I've always eaten veggies and fruits. I just got diabetes from an overload of processed foods and carbs. So I basically flipped the proportions of healthy and unhealthy foods I now eat. I stick to a few foods I like, and I go with different cuisines I cook. I already find them delicious, and their ease in cooking is a plus. Groceries are easy and thoughtless. When I start trying other foods I don't like that much, try to change the spices, cooking methods. Try to also taste different varieties of the same vegetable group. It's popular for people to say, eat the rainbow, but I hate orange and purple colors. And so I'll mix 2 to 3 foods together. Say 2 veggies I like with a smaller proportion of 1 veggie that's meh. I end up scarfing it down anyways. It's just an extra boost to not be deficient in any nutrients or vitamins. Weirdly, the only sauces I'm in love with are ketchup and hummus, so I'll get a low-carb, non-sodium, and sugar-free. Since I love them, I'll use them as a base. Dry barbecue rub added to ketchup for a clean barbecue sauce, roasted garlic and onion powder into non-fat Greek yogurt for aioli sauce, etc. You can make most healthy things taste decent. It just takes work. In regards to cooking, it does take time. I only cook dinner. I used to love me some bagel sammies, but gotta watch the health, so now it's an open-faced wheat sandwich with meat and raw veggies for breakfast. A clean protein waffle, Kodiak cakes, stacked with either berries or fish and raw veggies for lunch. If I'm in a pinch for breakfast, I'll do a chocolate protein shake with only kale and spinach. The protein gives me energy and satiety. The greens are needed fiber. I don't blend sweeteners. I do not consume, or fruit. Whole fruit with skin is way better for your health than fruit juice. When I do groceries, I buy a bunch of little pieces. 2 peaches, a small bag of spinach, etc. And I do groceries now twice a week as opposed to once. My taste buds now can eat the same thing daily. But before, I'd need to change the flavors up a lot. It also helps to change grocery stores weekly. Expensive American, cheap American, Asian, Mexican, as their flavors, processed food offerings, butchers, and produce all vary. I call it taste bud confusion, and it works. Oh yeah, all that happened with the only goal being lowering my A1C to non-diabetic. Achieved that in 3 months. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you made it this far, I'm sure you'll also enjoy. What unethical life hack can you share? Story 4, just my work. See you in that video.